Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th pre-agenda meeting for the Planning Commission. We have a relatively long review item agenda, so we'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Amy Brooks and get started.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Just have a couple updates for you all. So it is budget season for local government, and staff have begun to evaluate our planning work programs. So we'll be looking at that over the next month or two, and we're also, along with that, going to be preparing our budget. So if you have any questions or would like to discuss current or future work program items, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss those. And as we develop that, we'll share out drafts with you all. I want to thank everyone who was able to participate in the latest round of meetings for the development of the county's Unified Development Ordinance. Comments on the content that was presented last week during the virtual public meeting, comments and questions, that is, have been posted to the website, so you are able to take a look at that, along with a recording of the meeting, the presentation, all meeting materials, and of course that feedback survey. Comments on the content presented via the survey will be accepted through the end of today. Well, not the end of today. I think by midnight today is when that survey will close. You can find that on the Advanced Knox website. I will make a note that we will continue to accept comments throughout this process. So even though this particular survey is closing, please don't hesitate to provide additional comments and encourage people that you interact with out in the community to do so as well. We are now working on the development standards for the UDO, and we'll hold meetings on February 25th to review those proposed standards, and information is on the website about when those meetings will occur. So it's advancedknox.org/UDO/meetings. And that's all I have, unless somebody has some questions or other comments to share. So the first items on the agenda are number 5 and number 44, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Porche.
Thanks, Amy. So these two items are related. Earlier this year, the state legislature changed the public notice requirement for zoning ordinance amendments from 15 days to 21 days. That's prior to the scheduled hearing date, so not counting the meeting date. These noticing requirements apply to text amendments, rezonings, and zoning map amendments only, and related types of things. The proposed amendment aligns the City of Knoxville's public notice requirement with state law. So item 5 is the ordinance amendment. So given the change to state law, we're recommending approval to the proposed amendment to Article 15.2.b of the City Zoning Code, and that only changes the text. You can see here from 15 days to 21 days. That's the only change. Because our administrative rules and procedures also cite the public notice deadline, we're proposing amendments to them too, replacing 15 days with 21 days to the verbiage in Section 1. This is only pertaining to public notices, so the newspaper advertisements that we do, it does not apply to the public notice that we do via postcard or via signs. We're still committed to sending those in accordance with our administrative rules and procedures. The only other caveat we have is that there's currently another bill that's going through the State House and Senate that proposes another revision to the public notice requirement. So that bill proposes to bring the public notice requirement from 21 days down to 14 days. So in the meantime, we have these amendments to the city's zoning code and our administrative rules and procedures. We're holding off on county amendments to see what happens with this law coming through. But all that to say, we may end up with more amendments in the near future, changing it yet again. So happy to answer any questions.
I should know this, but for the sign posting, what are the administrative rules and procedures in terms of timing for that?
Yeah, so postcards are sent to property owners and properties within 300 feet of the subject property, and those go out 12 days prior to the meeting. And signs are likewise required to be posted 12 days prior to the meeting. Okay.
If it gets bumped up to 21, would we look to move those to be closer aligned to the 21-day advance? Or?
We are not considering that at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now we will turn it over to Samuel to address item number 16. It's a other business item. This is an appeal of a staff decision.
Thank you, Amy. As Amy mentioned, this is an appeal for staff determination of a middle housing application appealed by the applicant and property owner. The appeal application is included in the case package. The application was submitted prior to the recent amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 4.6 pertaining to middle housing, which amended the appeal body to the design review board. And this application is therefore subject to the previous zoning ordinance requirements in which middle housing appeals were heard by the Planning Commission. In accordance to Article 16, the Planning Commission may affirm, modify, impose restrictions, or overrule the planning staff determination. The property in question is 1216 Callaway Street. It's a property zoned RN4 in Mechanicsville neighborhood. It is in TDR land use classification. The lot size is 75 feet by 135 feet with an area of over 10,000 square feet. If you look at the surrounding context, this segment of Callaway Street comprises 18 single-story dwelling units and a two-story duplex at the corner of Callaway Street and University Avenue. The duplex is accessed from the University Avenue, not from Callaway Street. All of these structures are rectangular in shape, consistent with a typical house form. Other residential structures on this block face are modest in size, with the smallest structure being approximately 900 square feet. There are many non-conforming lots on this block face with regards to lot width. So the structures are likewise very narrow, with some as narrow as 15 feet or 20 feet. In here, you can see some street view of the properties on the same side of the subject property. And in the next slide, you're seeing some properties across the street. The application proposed an asymmetric U-shaped 2.5-story structure featuring 8 dwelling units separated by party walls or shared side walls. The proposed structure has a footprint encompassing approximately 3,370 square feet, including porches, and a building area of around 5,000 square feet, excluding porches. On this slide, you can see the site plan. The building is mostly aligned along the eastern boundary. There is an inner court on the western side. And in here, you can see the floor plan of the first two-story. This is an elevation drawing of that application. This is the front elevation where you'll be able to see 4 of the units on the front. Another unit will be seen on the back side, and the building looks like this is the elevation from the east elevation. And these are the west elevation, but you are looking at from the courtyard to the left of the building. Application was submitted in the Knox Plan Permitting Portal, contrary to our previous application process. Staff evaluated the application and did not find the form or scale to be compatible with the existing houses in the surrounding area. The proposed structure is nearly 4 times the size of any other residential structure on the block face. The average floor area of the block face is approximately 1,523 square feet, including porches, compared to over 6,000 square feet for the proposed structure. The average footprint of the 19 residential structure on both sides of this street is approximately 1,422 square feet. The proposed structure is approximately 3,370 square feet, resulting in a footprint that is more than 2.3 times of the size of the existing houses. The scale is even more outsized when looking at only the structures on the same side of the street. Considering these factors, we provided comments to the applicant and found that The application contradicts several sections of the zoning ordinance that are listed in here. The middle housing types are residential structures containing more than one dwelling unit with building footprint and overall scale comparable to a single family house. Promote the development of neighborhood scale housing form which are compatible with existing houses in the surrounding area. Generate middle housing buildings that are similar in footprint, height, and setback with existing neighborhood. And the intent of Article 4.6 is to allow middle housing types which are in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood and will not be injurious to it or to the public welfare. We provided these comments in Knox Plan portal, and our comments are included in the case package. Staff recommend that the Planning Commission evaluate this application based on its specific merits pertaining to middle housing. The Planning Commission should discuss whether the structure is a neighborhood scale housing form that is compatible with other structures in this area, whether it is similar in footprint, height, and setback with the existing neighborhood, and whether it will not be injurious to the neighborhood or public welfare. We want to remind you that each application is reviewed on its own merits separately. If the Planning Commission makes a different decision on a similar application, the Planning Commission should provide reasonings as to why the decision differs.
Anybody have any clarifying questions? Okay, thank you, Samuel. Now we will move on to agenda item number 33. This is a concept plan to SD 26C.
Okay. So as mentioned, this is 2 SD 26C, Simmons Farm on Roberts Road. For commissioners who've been on the commission for a few years, you may have seen this plan before. It was approved by the Planning Commission in late 2024. The subdivision plan was appealed to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Board of Zoning Appeals overturned the Planning Commission decision. Primarily for not showing the use for the remainder of this property, which was a large, about 2/3 of the western part, which you can kind of see in color on this screen. These areas. So the plan itself really hasn't changed too much, particularly for the main portion of the subdivision on the east side. Sorry. I've lost my pointer now. There it is. On the east side of the property, that really hasn't changed much. The lot arrangement and road alignment has remained largely unchanged. The original subdivision was approved for 141 lots, and basically the rear portion of the property was shown as future development. Now they're proposing 7 large estate-style lots. So that's kind of shown in the red here. 1 large open space lot shown in green. And really the other lots I show here, I'm going to flip to their previous plan in just a moment. You'll see there's no lots here, but really all they did was shift some lots over, so it's not really new lots per se. It's just they kind of filled in some gaps, probably made a few lots bigger or shifted things around. So that's what happened there. And just so you know, the blue area here, it's a wetland. So the previous plan did not identify that yet as a wetland. Their plan now does identify that as a wetland. So this is the previous plan that the Planning Commission saw. Like I said, the actual main part of the subdivision really hasn't changed much. It's all single-family house lots. The road alignment's essentially the same. And as you can see, they just labeled the rest of this area as future development, not really knowing what they're going to do exactly yet. But that's what the Board of Zoning Appeals was mainly concerned about was what the intent there was and how. Just from a locational standpoint, where we're at, Gibbs schools are off to the west, so Tazewell Pike Emory intersections. This is in northeast county. The property is on Roberts Road. Talk real quick about the Emory Road, Roberts Road intersection, and then another major portion of this project from a public improvement standpoint is the Washington Pike intersection to the south. Something else to note about this property is that there is a fairly large substation to the west, TVA and KUP substation. So they didn't really want to put houses on the backside of this property because it hums pretty loud, evidently. So that's one of the reasons majority of the developments on the east side get away as far away as possible from that, and lessen any impact on the residences. Zoning in the area is predominantly ag. That does have planned residential nearby, especially to the south. This subdivision does have a stub out to their property, but they are not connecting to it. It's not something that staff is recommending at this time. They've got plenty of road frontage and they have 2 access points on their own. As I mentioned, this property is rural living from the comprehensive plan. Detached residential, single-family residential uses are primary use. Houses on wide range of lot sizes. And it says agriculture and undeveloped private land serves as open space. So those are pretty broad statements from a comprehensive plan standpoint. There's really nothing that this plan is necessarily in conflict with regard to the plan itself. The applicant has stated previously that the large lots are kind of intended, they could be used for like mini farms if somebody wanted to. They're unrestricted in regard to the covenants and restrictions of the subdivision. I assume that's still the intent going forward since that was what they stated previously and kind of aligns with what they were saying regarding the lot sizes. There was a revision to one of the conditions of approval today. I don't know if it got sent to you. It is posted online. I have copies here if anybody wants to see it, but I can also send out the staff report to everybody after the meeting. But one of the conditions of approval was that the developer pay for a left turn lane on Emory Road, so westbound Emory Road. So basically a left turn lane here for people turning left onto Roberts Road. That's an existing warrant. So it was a consideration of that and an alternative improvement that the condition got modified to. So basically, there's a sight distance problem at this intersection looking to the east. So this is a street view, but you can see a ridge in the road. Basically, cars get hidden behind that ridge, and they come up towards the intersection this way. So anybody turning left onto Emory can't see them coming. So the modification to the condition is to not install a left turn lane, but to install advanced warning flashers. So this it's a safety improvement because they do impact this intersection for traffic on Roberts itself, but not necessarily warranting anything new in regard to the left turn lane. So that's kind of what happened there. Still requiring improvement, but it's not the full left turn lane, which was already warranted, and not necessarily triggered by their project. Just a reiteration of previous requirement that is still going forward is improvements at the Washington Pike intersection. So Washington Pike is the north-south street here, east-west, kind of northeast, southwest. And Roberts Road, Roberts Road is the one that's kind of zigzags across the property. Man, I really jumped off there. County already has a project to realign this intersection so that Roberts Road lines up along Kingston Pike, so we don't have this jog in the road anymore. The developer will participate in that improvement. I'm happy to go through any of the conditions of approval. They haven't really changed much since the last approval from the Planning Commission, other than the modification that I mentioned regarding that East Emory Road intersection. So staff is recommending approval with conditions. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
A quick clarification, Mike. On that turn lane, so you're saying originally, when it was originally approved, I guess, it was required then, but it's not required now?
So, and I don't know, Jim, can you happy to jump in anytime? But yeah, it was a requirement. TDOT. So Emory Road's a TDOT facility. TDOT requested that be a requirement of the development, that the turn lane be installed. It's warranted now, even without the development. So that's where the rub is here.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess, but now we're not requiring it. I guess that's the question. Jim?
Yeah, Chairman, this is kind of a unique one. They did original study using our turn lane warrants, and if you use the county's turn lane warrants, the turn lane is not met. TDOT has a very much more conservative approach. So when they redid the study, it came back and it obviously, to Mike's point, it was met. But our concern is when the issue came back up, we asked TDOT, and TDOT kind of deferred to the county about the matter. And our concern was really related to the line of sight more so than the turn lane, because it was only marginally warranted using our standards. So our main concern was the line of sight and the visibility. So we spoke with TDOT about, in lieu of that, potentially put this activated flasher in that would have a radar sensor to both sense traffic on the side street as well as the main line and provide for that. And they were agreeable to that, and then hence that's how we got to the recommendation. So a little bit of backstory there.
Yeah, great, perfect. Just looking for clarification. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm still confused. Let me just try to repeat it back, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. So originally, we wanted the turn lane because of sight distance. We got with TDOT. They were like, no, you don't have to. We were like, well, we're still worried about the sight distance. So now we're saying, okay, well, what if we line up the roads, and that's going to be good enough? So that's the recommendation. So we're not saying you have to do the turn lane anymore?
Well, there's actually two sites. I think Mr. Reynolds was talking about one that they're kind of bookend on either side. Okay. So in this location, the developer is providing funds for the county to realign this intersection, and the other one is the issue with the TDOT, where the turn lane was warranted using their standards but not ours.
So we want them to have a turn lane, and we're putting that in the report now.
We would recommend the flasher in lieu of the turn lane, considering all the constraints.
Okay, thank you. I'm clear.
Sorry about that. That was kind of confusing. Sorry.
I just had a quick question, Mike. I think you mentioned there's like no stub out that we're proposing here. Can you just elaborate on why that is?
So the neighborhood to the south has a stub out that comes to this property. This subdivision, the proposed one, has 2 access points already. One of them is somewhat near this property. Can you imagine the adjacent subdivision was, their preference is to not connect. I'm not going to say that anybody's surprised by that. But in this rural living place type, it doesn't quite have the connectivity recommendations that some of the other place types do. Typically, best case, we would want that connection. It's there for that future development. But really, that connection from a road access standpoint really doesn't provide much. And it wasn't something where we were really willing to push, I guess.
Yeah, understood. And I know I'm kind of a broken record on this. I just think about, like, if you got 2 kids living in the separate neighborhoods, there's no sidewalks on Roberts. It's a pretty narrow road. Like, I don't know, is it worth advocating for at least a pedestrian connection so that you don't have maybe folks walking on Roberts if they're going between neighborhoods, but, or is that contemplated there?
I mean, it could be a consideration for sure. That first lot looks like it could be big enough to allow a pedestrian connection through. It is, there's not a requirement for a sidewalk along Roberts here. You know, it is pretty close around that, but yeah, there's not a sidewalk requirement though on Roberts Road, so.
Okay. No, and I just kind of continue to struggle with what our view is on connectivity between subdivisions, and even if it's not vehicular, is it pedestrian? And, you know, if somebody, I don't know, is in a wheelchair, they can't necessarily walk along the side of the road, or, like, you know, and that's a statistical outlier case, but like still just would love to think about how we can apply more consistency to how we think about connectivity for our subdivisions.
Yeah, that's always a good one, but there's no internal sidewalks there either, is there, Mike, on that?
On the existing subdivision or the
Either,
Robert?
I guess either or.
I don't recall.
I mean,
I don't think they have any shown on the plan. I don't know if they plan on installing any. If they did, it would be, they'd be required to maintain them.
Right. I mean, I don't think there is. I mean, I don't think there's a requirement for it, if I remember right.
Yeah, so it does not appear that the existing subdivision has any sidewalks either.
Yeah, just comment, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if, there is a little bit of a, so on the southeast side of this property, where their their southern access point is there is a bit of a grade change here, so I don't know if they can make an ADA connection either between the two easily.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
I do have a question.
Oh, sorry, Nancy.
Oh, you're fine. So I guess this is kind of a two-part question, and it's about condition 6. So first part is, are we saying that we're going to label lot 17 as common area, but it's still going to be lot 17? Or is it just going to be common area? And the reason I'm asking is because I feel like I've seen it done both ways. And I feel like we've had a situation before where a developer kept ownership of a lot that was labeled common area and then later sold it and there were some houses built on it. So that's my first component. Second is it within, are we allowed to dictate as a condition that a lot be conveyed to an owners association?
Well, I can, I guess, address the first one. Yeah, the intent there is just to make sure that it's evident on the plat that it's not a house lot. But the second part, I really don't know. It can be shown on the plat that it's not a buildable lot and shown as common area, but I mean, somebody's going to have to pay taxes on it if they're holding it, I guess. So
Right.
if they don't want to be the one doing it, and if they can't build on it, then I assume that they give it up to the
Well,
homeowner association.
I guess I've seen a lot of scenarios where common area is deeded to the owners association, and, you know, requirement 14 is, or condition 14 is that association be created. I'm not positive whether we could dictate that they convey ownership to that or not. But again, sometimes I feel like when you look at a plat, you see something that's just common area and it's not a lot. But in this case, if it is platted as a lot, is there a route to somehow convert that into a buildable lot?
There's always a way.
That's,
Yeah, I mean, it's something that could be potentially converted. In this case, it is through a concept plan process as a common area lot, so we have to come back through that process to convert it to something else.
Okay. But if,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if the I'm just thinking, and again, this is maybe not that specific to this case, but if the developer keeps ownership of that lot, it's a platted lot, it seems like that'd be easier process to go through than if it was just common area part of a kind of contiguous.
Yeah, well, it's always going to be platted. Well, it should be platted. This is a larger than 5 acre lot, so.
I guess lot 17 looks like it could be combined with the rest of the, kind of the, I guess, the wetland area, so to speak.
Well, all of that area is part of a larger lot,
Right.
like house lot. So, I mean, if they wanted to make the other very large lot part of that common area, they could and combine it with this common area lot.
Could it be a stub out eventually, essentially, is what we're asking? I mean, could it become more lots in the future?
Potentially. They'd have to come back through the process again.
Okay.
And they'd have to have a zoning change and maybe some land use, I don't know if land use plan or anything, how that would work. But, I mean, they're pretty much, under the current zoning, under the current growth policy plan and the current comprehensive plan, they have maxed out density for the entire project.
But like if you look at the pond number 2, common area number 2, that is not a numbered lot.
It'll get a label eventually during the plating process. It was just that this one was labeled as like 17 as like just like a house lot is.
Right.
That was my main concern, that it could be caught or missed during the plating process or something.
Yeah.
Versus like
Well,
the
and-
other
and
ones
again,
that are
that-
ponds and.
That's why I'm asking the question, is just make sure that that what the intent is
Yeah,
permanent as we can make it,
these
I guess.
common area detention, because those are also stormwater related
Right.
common areas. So-
It just feels different since there's a number 17 on this.
Yes, yeah. It just looks more, even though it's labeled as common area, it just had that lot label
Right.
that was more like a house lot than the other ones were. That was the whole purpose there.
Yeah. I'd rather have the 17 gone. All right. So what, Director Brooks, did you have any thoughts on the second prong about dictating the ownership's conveyed to the association?
I need to look back over the conditions, but I don't see the conditions say that it's required for it to be under the HOA. But it's standard practice, or has been for many years, for common area to be identified on
Right.
concepts.
Right.
But I don't believe,
I'm just not used to seeing it have a lot number, I guess is why.
Well, like I said, like the common areas, they will eventually be identified as something on a lot. Usually they do have some kind of lot number, and a lot of times we try to push them towards like an alternative lot number
Right.
type than it's just like something that looks like a house lot number.
No,
Since it's not a
but
buildable lot.
typically, the common area retains the parent parcel tax ID number, right?
That I'm not
I think it does.
Positive.
So in this case, well, lot 17, since it's a lot, it will have a different, I think it'll have a different parcel ID number. Which just kind of,
Commissioner, I think maybe let us take a look at this
Okay.
and see how we'll look back at some other concept plans and look at the tax ID and how that's been assigned or not assigned, and we can follow back up. And then also look back at when we started assigning, when lot numbers were placed on
okay.
plats. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Reynolds on this one? Okay, thank you. We are going to move on to number 29, if Ms. Warner's ready.
Okay, so this is a concept and development plan for 12 single-family lots on 6.27 acres. The density is 1.921 units an acre. There's one zoning condition on here, and so the zoning is PR up to 2 dwelling units an acre with one condition to maintain a 50-foot tree preservation buffer along the northern and eastern boundary lines. So the street will be public and it will line up with the existing Burt Newman Road. So the applicant has provided verification that the access can obtain sight distance in both directions with some grading along the Bakertown Road frontage. There are going to be sight distance easements in both lots 1 and 12. The applicant is requesting a reduction in the peripheral boundary along lots 3 through 5 to 25 feet from 35 feet. And the 50-foot tree buffer is shown crossing through the house lots, not within common area. The zoning condition doesn't require it to be in common area, but staff is recommending that the tree buffer be within common area, as it's the best way for the county to enforce the zoning condition of the tree preservation. The slope analysis recommends a disturbance budget of 5.89 acres. With the 50-foot tree buffer, the project will stay within the recommended disturbance budget. Another thing to note, if this is common area, this will be where the lot line is. So right now, the lot goes all the way around, and the buffer's on private property. So right now, a rear setback would technically be within this buffer, so you could build structures within 5 feet of this buffer. But if this was common area, this would be the lot line, and you'd just have the rear setback from that lot line. So we are recommending approval of the development plan and concept plan subject to conditions. The applicant is going to ask to remove the condition number 6, that the 50-foot tree buffer shall be within common area. And they would like to show it as proposed with the buffer on individual lots. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Whitney. Okay, the next 2 items we'll turn over to Jesse for. So the first one is number 8, 2A26 HPA.
So this is a level 2 hillside protection certificate of appropriateness request in the city, 2A26 HPA. The subject property comprises 37.5 acres and is located at 3275 West Governor John Sevier Highway, just east of the nearby intersection with Alcoa Highway. The request is to exceed the permitted disturbance per the hillside protection regulations by approximately 5.21 acres for a total of 22.08 acres of clearing on the parcel. A level 2 COA must be heard by the Planning Commission where it can be approved, denied, or approved with conditions. Here's the slope analysis where you can see that the bottom right corner shows a disturbance within the HP overlay is permitted at 15.3 acres max. We don't have these level 2 cases too frequently, so it's helpful to recap why the city has a hillside protection zoning overlay and how its enforcement functions to support our adopted plans. The Hillside and Ridgetop Protection Plan was adopted in 2011 to provide the vision and means for protecting hillsides and hillside development while minimizing off-site environmental damage. The basis for the plan stems from a recognition that forested ridges and hillsides are a defining characteristic of the region's natural heritage and a primary contributor to maintaining long-term property values, clean air, and water and wildlife protection. Enforcement of the disturbance limits supports many of the development policies in the city's general plan, including policies to conserve natural assets, minimize grading on steep slopes, encourage development where there are the fewest environmental constraints, conserve trees and woodlands, protect water resources by retaining trees, and minimize the loss of woodlands and wildlife habitat. The Hillside Protection Overlay is also one of the essential tools in implementing the goals of the recently adopted Knoxville Urban Forest Master Plan, which emphasizes the preservation and protection of mature trees, specifically via the city code. This particular property is also within the State Scenic Roadway Program, and it's included in the 2019 Governor John Sevier Highway Scenic Corridor Study, which recommends overlay standards like hillside protection to address tree preservation. In 2018, this property was purchased by the applicant, Blaylock Construction, and it was fully forested at that time. In 2019, the applicant received a permit to clear and grade 9.28 acres of the parcel for the purpose of transporting soil off-site for fill material, also known as a borrow pit. A condition for the permit was the implementation of the reforestation plan you see here. The reforestation plan shows that most of the disturbed area would be permanently stabilized with at least 15 tree species and a minimum of 303 seedlings per acre. Hillside protection was not enforced via the zoning code at this point, but this disturbance would have been permissible, and it was right at the threshold of what the tree protection ordinance would permit. In January of this year, Blaylock scheduled a pre-submittal meeting with the city to discuss their intent to utilize this property as a fill site for soil and rock from the Alcoa Highway expansion project, as well as a laydown yard, which is an area for staging materials, tools, and equipment and vehicles. In preparation for this meeting, city and planning staff discovered that the 2024 aerial map showed about 15.5 acres clearing on the site, which exceeded that 2019 permit by just over 6 acres. It's also apparent that reforestation has not occurred yet, as was required by that permit, and a laydown yard is already present. A notice of violation was subsequently issued, and the applicant is working with the city on a revised reforestation plan to address the NOV, which you can see to the right. This draft reforestation plan provides a smaller area of replanting than what was proposed in 2019, with reduced species variation, and it basically addresses the amount of acreage that was cleared without a permit. The amount of clearing that has already occurred is shown in blue, and it is right at the maximum disturbance permissible per hillside protection. The applicant is now seeking to disturb an additional 6.68 acres, shown in orange, for a fill site. 5.21 acres of that orange area is in the hillside protection overlay, and that's the extent of this level 2 COA. The valley they're looking to clear and fill appears to contain a blue line stream, but the applicant did provide a hydrologic study by TDEC indicating that it is a wet weather conveyance to the Tennessee River and not subject to the typical stream protection regulations. It's important to note that the hillside protection overlay functions separately from the tree protection ordinance, which prohibits clearing more than 25% of trees on a parcel in this case. The applicant violated this threshold with the unpermitted clearing that already occurred, and the 22 plus acres they're requesting now comprises almost 60% of the site. The city's urban forester, who administers the tree protection ordinance, has provided a letter in opposition to this COA request, and you can find it in your packet as Exhibit E. Staff recommend denying the COA because there are no special circumstances or conditions that make compliance a challenge, and it's inconsistent with the intent of our adopted plans as well as other city ordinances. Staff understand the urgent nature of managing a dynamic highway expansion project, but there are other avenues for disposal of fill that would comply with city code and reduce conflict with adopted land use plans. There are no extenuating circumstances on this parcel, such as a cleared utility easement that's unbuildable but does eat up your disturbance budget, and that's been an example of a hardship we've accommodated in the past. Moving forward with this COA could undermine another city ordinance, the tree protection ordinance, and for these reasons, staff recommend denying this request. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have one quick question. You had mentioned that staff is aware of the issues with building roads and needing to place other materials and things like that. And you said there are other options for that? I mean, are there options on this property? Is that another way to do it, or?
No,
is that
not
what
on
you're
this
referring-
property.
So you're just saying there's other options, you got to go somewhere else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. We can move on to the next one. Item number 25.
This is 2J26RZ, 2A26PA. There we go. This is a request to rezone a 29.5-acre parcel at 3611 East Governor John Sevier Highway from planned commercial and business and manufacturing to industrial. This request requires a plan amendment from business park and town center mixed-use place types to mining and heavy industrial. Its northern border is formed by Swan Pond Creek, which is its watershed, and Forks of the River Park is adjacent to the north. The floodway zone and the stream protection and hillside protection area designations would be retained in this request. Most of the subject property has the business park place type, except for approximately 5 acres along the East Governor John Sevier Highway corridor, which has the town center mixed-use place type. Both of these designations mirror that of adjacent parcels, forming a cohesive vision of future land use along a commercial corridor and at the intersection with Strawberry Plains Pike. These place types are not the result of an error or omission in the comprehensive plan. The stream protection area covers the property and aligns with the FEMA flood map, which places most of the property within the 100-year floodplain. The western side of the parcel is in the hillside protection overlay with steep undisturbed slopes. There have been no changes of conditions in the area that support a spot place type of mining and heavy industrial at this location. The property is subject to flooding from Swan Pond Creek, and it's directly across from Forks of the River Park, which provides soccer fields, a picnic pavilion, and a playground for the surrounding community. The requested place type could result in land uses that have hazardous polluting impacts on water quality and to those who engage with the park. Most of the subject property is zoned planned commercial, which requires Planning Commission review of development plans to achieve high-quality site design. It's worth noting that the only change of conditions in the immediate area is the unpermitted expansion of construction equipment and material storage on the subject parcel. While specific development intent is not the focus, we do consider all possible uses with the zone. It's worth noting that the applicant stated in their plan amendment request that their intention is to pursue an asphalt production facility, which is one of the more intensive uses in terms of public health impact. Staff recommend denying the proposed plan amendment and rezoning because it does not meet any of the criteria for a plan amendment to be considered, and the zone could result in development that has an adverse impact on surrounding public and environmental health. This is a flood-prone lot next to a public park, and approving this rezoning would conflict with the comprehensive plan's implementation policies, including Policy 7 to encourage development practices that conserve and connect natural features and habitat, as well as Policy 20 to use the park system to promote goals of economic vitality, conservation of natural resources, and resiliency to natural hazards. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jesse. We will move over to Kelsey for agenda item number 9 to start off with. It's a plan amendment and a rezoning request.
All right. This item was postponed at last month's meeting so the applicant could amend their rezoning request from the RN5 General Residential Neighborhood Zoning District to the RN6 Multifamily Residential Neighborhood Zoning District. The plan amendment for the medium-density residential office land use classification did not change, as the MDRO land use class allows consideration of both the RN5 and RN6 districts. The subject property is within the Edgewood neighborhood with access off of Bill Williams Avenue, a transitional area between the North Broadway commercial corridor to the east and the residential neighborhood to the west. Development along Bill Williams Avenue consists of less intensive non-residential uses, such as labor union halls and the WBIR TV broadcasting studio. The requested MDRO land use class is intended for office and medium-density residential uses and can provide a buffer to low-density residential areas and commercial uses. The MDRO land use class would be appropriate here as it would more aptly reflect the development pattern of this area and provide a transition in land use intensity. So though the applicant has amended their request to the RN6 district, planning staff believe that the RN5 general residential neighborhood district would still be appropriate here. The RN6 district is intended to accommodate high-density neighborhoods characterized by a mixture of housing types. The recommended RN5 district is intended to accommodate medium-density residential neighborhoods comprising a mix of housing types, and it may also serve as a functional transition between more intensely developed residential or commercial areas. Though there is a mix of single-family duplex and limited small-scale multifamily developments in this area, this part of the Edgewood neighborhood would not be considered a high-density neighborhood. The RN5 district also limits the height of multifamily structures to 45 feet when abutting single-family dwellings, which this property is, whereas the requested RN6 district allows a maximum height of 65 feet and does not restrict height based on neighboring dwellings. The allowable height in the RN5 district is more compatible to that which was allowed in the office zoning district, which is 45 feet. Staff recommendation is to approve the RN5 zoning district as the property meets the intent of the RN5 district, and it would support increased residential density that is more in scale with the surrounding area. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 10.
All right. This is a city rezoning request to go from the RN1 single-family residential neighborhood zoning district to the RN2 single-family residential neighborhood zoning district. The property is located in South Knoxville on the north side of Sevierville Pike, northeast of East Redbud Road. The hillside protection overlay would be retained. The subject property is currently accessed off of Pine Hill Lane, a narrow dead-end local street with a pavement width between 8 to 12 feet. Pine Hill Lane is accessed from a sharp curve off of Sevierville Pike, where there appears to be limited sight distance at this intersection due to the curvature of Sevierville Pike. The narrow and uneven pavement width of Pine Hill Lane does not meet street construction standards and may have to be widened to 15 feet to comply with minimum standards. To eliminate road condition and sight distance concerns, it is recommended that, if feasible and if the rezoning is approved, access be from Sevierville Pike. This could still be challenging, though, because of the site's topography and environmental constraints. It is steepest near both its access points on Pine Hill Lane and near its frontage off of Sevierville Pike. Due to the site's topographical constraints, coupled with access concerns, planning staff do not recommend increasing intensity at this site. And staff recommendation is to deny the RN2 zoning district. Are there any questions?
Okay, we'll keep moving. We'll go on to agenda item number 21.
Okay. This is a county rezoning request to rezone a 4.97 acre property located at Byington Beaver Ridge Road, north of Byington Solway Road, from planned residential with conditions up to 4 dwelling units an acre to planned residential up to 4.3 dwelling units an acre. Zoning in the surrounding area mainly consists of low-density residential zoning and industrial zoning. The neighboring industrial zoning is an active node with industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, and wholesale uses. Approximately 450 feet to the south of the site is a plastics production facility, and directly abutting to the west is a truss plant. In 2023, there was a rezoning request to go from RA low-density residential to PR up to 5 dwelling units an acre. Staff recommended approval of PR up to 4 dwelling units an acre with the condition to add landscape screening to buffer the residential uses from the industrial uses. The PR zone is appropriate here as it allows development to be clustered away on more optimal sections of the property and away from more intensive uses. As well as a density of 4 dwelling units an acre is similar to that was what was already allowed in the existing RA zone. Staff recommendation for PR up to 4 with the one condition for landscape screening was approved by County Commission. The following year in 2024, there was a rezoning request to go from PR up to 4 to 4.3 dwelling units an acre. Staff recommended denial of this request because there had been no change in conditions in the area since the previous recommendation. And this rezoning request was approved by Planning Commission, but withdrawn prior to the County Commission meeting. Since the previous rezoning request, conditions in the area have remained stable and there have been no new infrastructure improvements or services brought to the area, nor have there been any rezoning, use on review, or development plan requests approved within 3/4 of a mile of the subject property. The current density of 4 dwelling units an acre would allow up to 19 dwelling units, whereas the requested 4.3 dwelling units an acre would allow up to 21 units. An additional 2 units would not adversely affect traffic or the surrounding environment, but increasing residential density adjacent to active industrial uses is not recommended. Due to the proximity of the intensive uses to the south and west and the lack of changing conditions in the area, staff recommendation is to deny the PR zone with up to 4.3 dwelling units an acre. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the last item on our agenda, which is number 22.
Okay, this is a request to rezone a roughly 1 acre property located on the south side of Beaver Ridge Road and north of Oak Ridge Highway from agricultural to CA general business. The subject property is accessed off of Beaver Ridge Road, a local street that primarily consists of single-family subdivisions and civic uses such as Carnes Elementary School, Carnes Public Library, and an urgent care facility. Commercial and office uses have been concentrated along Oak Ridge Highway to the south, a major arterial street. The existing CA zoning in the area is accessed directly off of Oak Ridge Highway. The subject property, however, does not have access to Oak Ridge Highway and is oriented towards the residential development on Beaver Ridge Road. Beaver Ridge Road primarily serves the residential neighborhoods to the north, but also serves as a through street for the elementary school to the west and the civic and retail uses to the east. The subject property is located on a section of Beaver Ridge Road between single-family dwellings and near the entrance of the Potomac Place subdivision. The proposed rezoning would extend the CA zone to the middle of a residential block, which could potentially further increase through traffic and disrupt the residential character of the area. This conflicts with Implementation Policy 2 to ensure that development is sensitive to existing community character. Staff recommendation is to deny the CA General Business Zoning District because it would be an encroachment of a commercial zone into a residential area. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. Are there any other items that we did not put on this agenda that anyone would like to discuss? No?
Very good, and it went faster than I thought it would, so that's a good thing. So, do you need anybody? We're good. All right, thank you for coming. We're adjourned.
Okay, so